My name is Melinda. I'm sitting in my sister's kitchen, sipping tea, and the weight of the past few days presses down on me. Just a short while ago, I was standing in a driveway, watching a car full of my husband's family drive away without me, a bowl of pasta salad in my hands. It was a moment that shattered the illusions I'd been holding onto for far too long. My husband, Ethan, and I had been together for 4 years, married for 2. We lived in a charming second-floor apartment on a tree-lined street. The building smelled of fresh paint and the occasional aroma of Mrs. Thompson's homemade pies from the first floor. Our apartment had large windows that let in the morning sun, making every day feel full of possibilities. I remembered the day I painted the living room a soft shade of peach. Ethan had stood beside me, handing me the paint tray, and said, "It looks amazing." I believed him, and I believed in our future together. Ethan's mother, Amelia, was a formidable woman. At 63, she was a successful businesswoman who had a very clear vision of how her son's life should be. She had opinions on everything, from our choice of apartment to when we should start a family. She would often say, "I'm just looking out for Ethan's best interests," but her words felt like a subtle form of control. Ethan, on the other hand, was a kind and gentle man. He was thoughtful and remembered the little things I said. But when it came to his mother, he always seemed to back down. He hated conflict, and I had spent 3 years making excuses for his silence, telling myself that he just needed time to stand up for me. One Saturday afternoon, I thought we were going to a barbecue at Ethan's cousin's place. I was excited, looking forward to spending time with the family. I put on the blue sundress Ethan liked and made a bowl of pasta salad to contribute. But when we got to the car, Amelia looked at me with cold eyes and said, "There's no room." Without a second thought, she got into the passenger seat and closed the door, as if I didn't exist. Ethan, standing by the driver's side, said nothing. His brother, sister-in-law, and their kids also remained silent. They drove away, leaving me alone in the driveway. In that moment, something inside me shifted. I walked back into the apartment, put the pasta salad in the fridge, and began to pack my bags. It wasn't an impulsive act, it was a calm, deliberate decision. I took my work clothes, toiletries, and important documents. I left the photos of Ethan and me on the dresser for now. I wasn't sure what they meant anymore. I called my sister, Lily. She's 5 years older than me and has always been my rock. When I told her I needed a place to stay, she simply said, "Come now. I'll make some tea." Over the next few days, Ethan called and texted. He sent a long message late on Sunday night, trying to explain that the situation was complicated. But I had spent 3 years accommodating his mother's feelings, and I was done. Lily sat me down and said, "You need to figure out what you really want." I knew I wanted an apology, but not just a simple "I'm sorry." I wanted Ethan to understand the pattern of his mother's behavior and to choose me without hesitation. I called my friend, Sarah, who had known us since before we got married. She walked me through all the small incidents over the years that I had chosen to ignore. Amelia had always found ways to exclude me, whether it was rearranging seating at family dinners or announcing family trips without including me. Sarah said, "She's been doing this systematically, and Ethan has let it happen." On Thursday, Ethan came to Lily's. We sat on the front steps, and he said, "I'm sorry." I waited for him to say more. He admitted that he should have stood up for me in the car. I asked him if he understood the pattern, and for a moment, I saw him start to make excuses. But then he stopped and said, "She makes you feel like you don't belong, and I haven't stopped her." It was a start. I told him he needed to have a real conversation with his mother, to tell her that what she did was unacceptable and that things needed to change. He was hesitant, saying that his mother wouldn't take it well. But after some thought, he agreed to do it. The next morning, Ethan went to his mother's house. He called me from outside, his voice shaking. He said he had found a folder on her kitchen table. It was full of real estate listings for our area, notes about our apartment lease, and a draft proposal for a transition in living arrangements that referred to me as the current tenant. I met Ethan at a local coffee shop. When I saw the folder, I realized the extent of Amelia's plans. She had been working on this for months, maybe even longer. I knew I needed to have a direct conversation with her. Ethan and I drove to Amelia's house. When she opened the door, she was taken aback to see me. We sat in her living room, and I placed the folder on the coffee table. I told her I wanted to understand what it was. She tried to brush it off, saying it was private research. I looked at her and said, "I know you love Ethan, but this is not an act of love. It's an act of control. On that day in the driveway, you publicly excluded me from your family, and all the while, you were planning to remove me from our life together. What gives you the right to make that decision?" Amelia was silent for a long time. Ethan sat beside me, not saying a word, just waiting. Finally, she said, "I love my son." I replied, "Love doesn't give you the right to interfere with his choices. You need to respect our marriage." Ethan then spoke up, his voice firm. "Mom, what Melinda is saying stops now. I'm choosing my marriage, and I'm choosing Melinda." Amelia looked at him, and for the first time, I saw a crack in her composure. She nodded and said, "I hear you." We left Amelia's house, and Ethan put his arms around me on the street. We drove back in silence, but it was a different kind of silence, one filled with hope. In the following weeks, Ethan started going to therapy. We had long, honest conversations about our relationship and what it meant to be partners. Amelia's behavior changed, or at least, her attempts to exclude me became less obvious. A few weeks later, I moved back into our apartment. I unpacked my bags, putting the photos of Ethan and me back on the dresser. I took the pasta salad out of the fridge and ate it, standing at the kitchen counter. I thought about all that had happened, the pain, the anger, and the newfound clarity. I realized that I had finally taken back the space that was rightfully mine. I no longer needed anyone's permission to be a part of my own life.